Okay, great. How are you, Soolmaz?
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine. It's a pleasure for me to be able to talk with you today about sports and conflict resolution, something that you're quite familiar with and have had a lot of experience with. And I thank you so much for being with us
Of course,
during
sure.
this.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, hey, our pleasure. So to start, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and get us a little bit acquainted with you?
Sure. So I am a professor right now at George Mason University. I am an author and also an entrepreneur, and I'm also teach on the intersection of sport and conflict resolution and diplomacy. And I also publish on the topic, and I am also doing some consulting for organizations to where sport is utilized as a vehicle to achieve some sort of positive change in society. And then on top, on the other side of all of this, I practice martial arts. So I'm a 14-time U.S. national champion and world champion in traditional karate.
Wow, that's impressive, my dear.
Thank you.
That's a lot of things to do. That is amazing. It must be a balancing act to get it all, keeping it all going. Well,
It's a balance. It is definitely a balancing act, and it's become more so now just because I have two little kiddos. So but it's great.
I'm sure. I'm sure. So, how many times champion was that? 14.
14-time
Whew.
national champion.
Hey.
And then I'm also a world champion. So I represent the United States on the traditional karate team,
Oh,
US team. And so, of course, I compete nationally, and then I travel internationally also. And compete there every other year typically, and as well as other invitational competitions also
sure.
that come up. Although with COVID, the past year and most likely this year is up in the air,
Sure.
but hopefully next year 2022 we'll be able to resolve, and I'll still continue to hopefully compete.
That sounds wonderful. That's congratulations. That's good. Well, tell us a little bit about your work. I know little bits and pieces of it. You've had a long career in this field and done some exciting things. Can you just share a few of the things that you've done? Then we'll
Sure.
try to make the
So,
linkage with conflict resolution.
yep, yeah, sure. So some of the things that I've done, I think some good examples to share, and some also pretty recent examples are, again, the use of all revolves around the use of sport. So how do you use sport? And in my case, I use primarily martial arts. Excuse me. And one of the examples is a couple years ago at a local high school in Virginia, I launched a 9-month long program to teach martial arts to the student body at this high school.
Uh-huh.
And the issues that were prominent in this high school is that there was a large disparity between the wealthier students and the non-wealthier students, I guess. But also there were a lot of immigrant. They had a high immigrant population. So what you saw was lots of fights that were breaking out, high aggression. There was a lack of a sense of lack of belonging among the groups. The immigrant groups didn't have any resources or any opportunities to participate in any of these school sports, like the well-funded school sports like football, basketball,
Mm,
lacrosse, all of this stuff. So they were just kind of there. And what we did was this program was really targeted toward not just anyone who wants to learn martial arts, but toward girls, because they had found that there was more fights amongst the girls than there were amongst the boys,
ah,
actually. And so it was around that for girls, and also for basically that population of kids who didn't feel like they could do anything other than just come to school and go to class if they
right.
did.
Yeah.
And so it was hugely successful, to say the least. It was 2 times a week for 1 hour. And at first, the school administrators were pretty hesitant to start the program because you have aggression, and then you're going to go teach them more aggression by teaching them how to punch and kick. So, but the idea was that the style that I practice, traditional karate, is also non-contact. And so, I mean, competitions, contact happens and stuff, but typically when we're teaching non-contact. So the
Mhm.
idea is that you use your body to generate force and speed and so forth to execute techniques, but you physically stop at the skin.
Mhm.
But while you're still transferring the energy through. So that takes a lot of skill, a lot of discipline, a
Mhm.
lot of emotional stability to do. And this is what we're teaching. So this is the conversation that we had with the administrators, and they agreed. So we taught this class, and let me tell you, the results from that were astounding. First of all, we were covered by local news. We got in several newspapers, and people wanted to do documentaries on us, on the program. But what would happen was that these kids started to have such a deep sense of pride, um, in terms of belonging to something at the school.
Sure.
They were showing more discipline. They were showing more respect. Even the kids that were a little bit, the more at-risk kids, they were showing up to class. They were showing up to their school classes, and it got to the point where the teachers were actually coming to us and saying, "Hey, we're going to tell this kid that if he doesn't behave, he cannot go to karate class." So they
Ooh.
would start to use our karate class as bait for them to behave well. But really, overall, what they were seeing was that they were showing a huge sense of respect toward the authority figure and
Mhm.
toward their peers.
Mhm.
And so we took the kids to two local tournaments, and so the 9 month long program was very successful. We didn't continue with it because there was just a lack of resources, and also the school administration changed at that time.
Oh,
So
yeah.
there was just a lot of different factors at play. But it was a huge success in that it's an example of what can be done to address, like you said, like I said, a lack of belonging, high
Mhm.
aggression, and just also apathy, that exists within, from
Mhm.
students within the class. And just mind you, this high school was located in a place where the kids are very susceptible to being recruited to gangs, because
Mhm.
they basically don't have any other place to go. They don't have a family. They don't have a sense of belonging to anything,
Mhm.
and they're there, so they get recruited to a group of gangs that will provide that for them.
That
So
sense of
we
community.
became
Mhm.
yeah we became that alternative for them.
Wow.
So that's one thing that I've done. Another thing is I'm helping an organization, uh, basically revamp their mission and their work to recruit more females, into martial arts, so that more females are learning self-defense and could hopefully protect themselves, against any sort of
Mhm.
assault.
Mhm.
Um, so these are, in another example that's internationally related. I was invited to a invitational training session in Poland, a couple of years ago, and basically as a U.S. member, team on the karate team, to train with members of the Polish karate team. And it had never been done before, but we came together in the dojo, the space where we train, and a lot of us didn't know, a lot of them didn't know English. I didn't know Polish, and so we were basically training there together.
Mhm.
I had a lot of them. A lot of us in that group. We had met one another in a fight as competitors, and so now we were here in this group together, supposedly going to train, like in a goodwill training seminar session, and supposed to be all good with each other. And let me tell you, it was very, very interesting, because what ended up happening was that the the cultural components of the martial arts and the tenets of nonviolence and the tenets of respecting one another and learning with one another and growing and striving for a perfection of character, all of that in the absence of language and of any sense of connection, and also within the presence of a competitive spirit that we've proven to have had with each other, that served as the basis upon which we were able to find mutual ground and work with each other and train peacefully with each other and help each other grow. And so that's an example of how, even in the midst of competition, which is a huge part of sport, that you can sort of, it still exists, but you can sort of bypass it in a way if you have another basically platform upon
Mhm.
which you can base your interactions and create new narratives that humanize the other and new feelings, new thoughts about one another. So these are some of the examples of kind of how I've used martial arts, or how I've been involved in situations of martial arts, using doing this kind of work.
That's marvelous. Well, it's interesting that you're talking about that, because one could kind of visualize that if it were a team sport, but with an individual, the competitive sense is quite there, present, and yet you're able to work collaboratively together when some of the aspects have changed. Like you said, some of the tenets have changed.
Yes, yes.
That's great.
It was
That's great. Well, yeah, amongst all of some of your past ones, what do you see as one of your most interesting, or some that contribute to the field? How do you see, I'm going to ask you about the field in a minute, but since we're on your experience, what is it that you see of your experiences that are most interesting for you in terms of bringing people together, community, inclusion, things like that? One I remember you did in LA, but I don't want to,
Yes.
yeah. But I mean, uh, something like that. What are some of the experiences you had that contribute to community inclusion?
So the LA project, thank you for bringing that up. That was with actor Joaquin Phoenix. He supported that endeavor. And what it was that we went to a highly uh, Jewish Orthodox community in LA, and we recruited teenagers, boys and girls, who wanted to basically be a part of learning karate along with Palestinians. We also went to a local mosque in the area and recruited some, similar teenage boys and girls who would have wanted to be a part of this. And we were upfront about the whole thing. This is who you'll be in the class with. You will be learning martial arts, and then afterwards you'll be sitting for a dialogue, to talk about some of the conflict resolution related skills that you have learned through the practice of martial art, such as ways to gain emotional stability through your training, like through your breath, through your movement, through your thoughts, through your intentions, this sort of stuff. And it was really really effective, because the one of the key ways that I knew right after the event that it was effective was that these kids, as soon as the event finished, I looked over and they all huddled and ran toward each other. They were all in a circle. I didn't know what they were happening. I thought, oh my God, they're attacking each other. I just taught them how to attack each other. But what they were doing was they were exchanging phone numbers and email addresses. And because these kids had never met before. I mean, the Palestinians maybe had met and the Jewish kids had met before, probably within their own circles, but they had never met each other. So we had set it up at a local dojo, and these kids came and they set up, and at first they were a little bit hesitant, very standing apart, but then mixed them together through very coordinated, very facilitated karate training, and again was non-contact, but we went through the basics of, basically, if you came to a first karate class, what would you learn? So we
Mhm.
did that, but we did a lot of partner training as well. And then after that was done, we all sat in a circle and we did some exercises and we talked about, well, what did you sense in your body when you were doing this? When you were standing in front of your Palestinian counterpart or your Jewish counterpart, and you were directing a fist toward them, what sensations were going through your mind? And so we were talking through all of these drills and all of these thoughts and feelings that might have come up, and basically breaking them down. So it was a sharing moment. Of course, Joaquin was present throughout that, and then afterwards we went out to a dinner, those who were able to make it, and we all sat and had dinner together. And so it was very, very interesting to show that even though within communities we could be, we could seem apart because of our religion or because of the history that we have internationally between our peoples, that there actually is a chance to find this common ground, so that I know that you are basically just like me and I'm just like you. You can rebuild a sense of community even within the existing conditions of a community.
Mhm.
There's always a chance to rebuild, but again, it has to be in a very coordinated and proactive
Mhm.
way.
Mhm.
But in I'm the U a member of the United Nations actually opened the event for us via virtually, and basically said hello to the students, opened the event, and said, "I'm so happy you're here, and I
Yeah.
a lot out of this experience," and so forth. And so that was very nice. And speaking of the UN, one of my recent projects is I'm working alongside with UNHCR,
Mhm.
um, to to um, to explore opportunities where I could speak to refugees. Because of COVID right now, that would be all virtual, but at some point it would be to visit programs that are designed for refugees.
Mhm.
And this would be basically to go and speak with them, but also to teach them karate and so forth, given that I have a history very similar to theirs, being a refugee. So this is basically my way of not only sharing the expertise that I've been lucky to have at this point, and to
Mhm.
go after, but also hopefully to shed a little bit inspiration that, listen, you're in this situation now, but there is a trajectory, there is a path
Mhm.
to move forward and
Yeah.
and do bigger things, and to go after your dreams.
That's marvelous. Well, in terms of sports, I know you've done a lot of studies also. You said you're speaking and you're writing and all of that. What do you see as some, not, of the contributions that sports can make and is making in resolving conflicts, disputes, things like that?
So a lot of the ways that I've discussed right now with the sports programs, they're being done, albeit not with martial arts necessarily, but
Mhm.
mostly soccer and basketball, which are really known as the most universal and popular sports.
Mhm.
So they're being done internationally. Israel and Palestine, they're being done. Northern Ireland, they're being done, in different places in the Middle East. Also now in the U.S., a lot of these sport-based organizations, sport-based interventions are
Mhm.
taking place, in Baltimore, in Chicago, in New York, in Detroit, and they're all doing very, very. They're basically taking their sport and they're bringing community of kids together, and they're teaching them that, hey, using teamwork and using perseverance and using all the skills that you need to achieve in a team sport with someone else. These are all the skills that you're going to need in life, and it's
Mhm.
basically, a lot of these programs are in also low income communities, low
Mhm.
socioeconomic communities, so that, and additionally that they're providing an opportunity where none might exist. And they're also pairing these sports programs with educational opportunities, with mentoring opportunities, and with mentoring and networking opportunities, so that these kids have additional resources to improve their academics, or perhaps socialize with others, or they're basically giving them this safe space,
Mhm.
and resources that typically is lacking in low socioeconomic
Mhm.
communities. And so
Mhm.
this is one key way that these sports organizations are typically nonprofits,
Mhm.
are contributing to the field. And now we're seeing recently a lot with athlete activism over the past couple of
Yes,
years.
yes.
So you have a lot of athletes now who are recognizing and utilizing their social media platforms to
Mhm.
directly speak to their fans, and just really the broader world, not just their fans, about issues that they care about, or perhaps provide their opinion, knowing full well that their opinion has clout. And that can at least get a person to stop and think a little bit differently, or think more about a certain issue, such as race, such as police brutality, such as gender discrimination. So it's athlete activism most likely is one of the going to be one of the leading threads of how sport is used to address conflict in society in the next recent years.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that universality that you talk about is really the common ground that it gives people. It allows them to be together in peace, if you will, or try to be in peace. But
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
great.
COVID couldn't even take away sport. That's how popular sport is and how universal sport is, right? Like
Yeah,
you say sport and people immediately will convene. It's just you just can't avoid it. So it's there and it should be utilized.
absolutely, totally agree. Well, look, thank you so much, Soolmaz, for sharing your time with us and your ideas. I know that everyone who sees this video will hopefully reflect on the things that you've said. And I just want to thank you again on all of our behalf. Thanks so much.
Thank
Have
you
a
for
good
having
day.
me. Thank you.
Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye bye.